I hope you can hear me through the sounds around us. We're in the Middle East, so we have to get used to this sort of thing. Yeah.
You're confident that railing is strong, aren't you? You're confident that railing is strong?
Yeah, I'll be alright. Right, so we're now at the place called Pools of Bethesda. You saw a model of it at the Jerusalem Museum, do you remember?
Yeah.
With the 5 covered colonnades.
Yeah.
This is a place that no one thought existed the way John described it, and therefore John was thought to be a 2nd century forgery. People thought that someone had written the Gospel of John in the 2nd century because they obviously didn't have any knowledge of Jerusalem, until they then found this place and found that it actually matched John's description. This place was covered in AD 70 during the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans, and so John had to have been in Jerusalem before then to have been able to write his Gospel. This place is thought to be a place in the an Old Testament place called the Upper Spring. I think it's the Upper Spring, just a second. Upper Pool, sorry, the Upper Pool. So they had a pool here, they had a dam where they gathered water. Then later on they added this 2nd pool as well and built this complex with the 5 covered colonnades. Now this is a place, the Upper Pool is a place we find it was outside the walls, and it's a place where Isaiah went. So we read about it in Isaiah 7. Let me read to you. When Ahaz, son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, was king of Judah, King Rezin of Aram, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, marched up to fight against Jerusalem, but they could not overpower it. Now the house of David was told, Aram has allied itself with Ephraim. So the hearts of Ahaz and his people were shaken, as the trees of the forest are shaken by the wind. The Lord said to Isaiah, Go out, you and your son Shear-Jashub, to meet Ahaz at the end of the aqueduct of the Upper Pool, on the road to the launderer's field. Say to him, Be careful, keep calm, and don't be afraid. Do not lose heart because of these 2 smouldering stubs of firewood, because of the fierce anger of Rezin and Aram, and of the son of Remaliah. Aram, Ephraim, and Remaliah's son have plotted your ruin, saying, Let us invade Judah, let us tear it apart and divide it among ourselves, and make the son of Tabeel king over it. Yet this is what the sovereign Lord says. It will not take place, it will not happen, for the head of Aram is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is only Rezin. Within 65 years, Ephraim will be too shattered to be a people. The head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is only Remaliah's son. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz, Ask the Lord your God for a sign, whether in the deepest of depths or in the highest of heights. So this over here is where Isaiah would have met with King Ahaz, saying this famous telling him this famous thing, Ask the Lord your God for a sign, whether in the deepest of depths or in the highest of heights. Well, this is what Ahaz replied. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, I will not put the Lord to the test. Then Isaiah said, Hear now, you house of David, is it not enough to try the patience of humans? Will you try the patience of my God also? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel. He will be eating curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. For before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the 2 kings you dread will be laid waste. We don't know exactly who this person that King Ahaz would have known was, who was to bear a child called Emmanuel, but we do know that this is ultimately fulfilled in Jesus and in the virgin birth. And this is where that was uttered to King Ahaz. Later in Isaiah, we find the Upper Pool again, and it's not King Ahaz this time, but King Hezekiah. And what we find is that Assyria is on the move, and we read in Isaiah 36, in the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, attacked all the fortified cities of Judah and captured them. Then the king of Assyria sent his field commander with a large army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. When the commander stopped at the aqueduct of the upper pool on the road to the launderer's field, Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, the palace administrator, Shebna, the secretary, and Joah, son of Asaph, the recorder, went out to him. The field commander said to them, "Tell Hezekiah, this is what the great king, the king of Assyria, says. On what are you basing this confidence of yours? You say you have counsel and might for war, but you speak only empty words. On whom are you depending that you rebel against me? Look, I know you are depending on Egypt, that splintered reed of a staff, which pierces the hand of anyone who leans on it. Such is the Pharaoh king of Egypt to all who depend on him. But if you say to me, we are depending on the Lord our God, isn't he the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah removed, saying to Judah and Jerusalem, you must worship before this altar? Come now, make a bargain with my master, the king of Assyria. I will give you 2,000 horses, if you can put riders on them. How then can we repulse one officer of the least of my master's officials, even though you are depending on Egypt for chariots and horsemen? Furthermore, I have come to attack and destroy this land. Furthermore, have I come to attack and destroy this land without the Lord? The Lord himself told me to march against this country and destroy it. Wow. So the commander of King Sennacherib of Assyria's army comes to this place to mock King Hezekiah and the people, and to mock the Lord, really. And Hezekiah prays to the Lord, and the Lord delivers his people. This is where we read how we read in chapter 37, it says that the army of Assyria were camping around Jerusalem, and it says, then the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, broke camp and withdrew. He returned to Nineveh and stayed there. If you ever go to the British Museum, you will be able to see an Assyrian account of this story on it's called a prism. It's kind of like a hexagonal or so shaped clay thing with text of the Assyrian account of this incident, where it says that the king of Assyria, he's bragging about his exploits in this region, and it talks about how he's shut King Hezekiah in like a bird in a cage in Jerusalem, how he's besieged the city, and how King Hezekiah has to pay him a tribute. Now the funny thing is, if you besiege a city, wouldn't you also take it? Wouldn't you also brag about how you took this great city, how you conquered it and went into it and maybe put to death its king? But the funny thing is, that's all he says. King Hezekiah paid him a tribute, and that was enough, even though he besieged this great city in this region, the greatest city in this region. But he's quiet about that. All the other places, he talks about how he conquers them and enters them, even smaller places, like Lachish, for instance. I think that was around the same time. But Jerusalem, he's happy enough with that small tribute. So it seems that there's something that he's not mentioning. We're going to go over here now, and we're going to read a bit more over there. So go, please take a seat in the shade.